Know what to eat, but find yourself not eating it. Perhaps you've been on diets and off again and just wonder why you can't stick to them. The Eating For You podcast, hosted by me, Sally Ann Pisk, will show you what's been missing so you can enjoy a healthier way of eating that lasts. Hi, Sally Ann with you, and I find myself back on the couch again this week for this special episode on secret eating. And why is it that so many women adopt the habit of eating in secret? And most importantly, how do they stop it? And that's what I'm excited to share with you today. What we don't realise is that secret eating is more common than one could imagine. And unfortunately, it's something that often brings shame with it, but it also gives us a wonderful opportunity to get a bit of insight into our relationship with food and how we can actually heal it for good. I just want to say though that the type of secret eating I'm talking about is not hiding away your favourite chocolates so the other family members don't find them before you. That type of eating is just putting aside something special that you can savour later. The type of secret eating I'm talking about is very different. And I'm talking about this now because I've had several conversations over the past weeks with women who eat in secret. They have these overwhelming feelings of disappointment and shame. And they feel alone because I'm often the first person that they've ever talked to about it. And this is what ladies in our community find, those that join our coaching programs that involve some group coaching, they soon realise that they're not alone, that we can take this habit out of the dark and put it into the light so we can see what it really is. And all it is a coping strategy that you have adopted at some time in your life. You probably eat in secret because simply you just don't want others to know what you're eating. And if you think about those habits that we hide away, we have a sense or an experience that what we're doing is the wrong thing to do. And this can bring shame and judgment, which we're going to tap into a little bit more. But what I want to say up front is that my experience working with women and men over the past 30 odd years is that often our intentions to eat healthier, trying to stick to a diet, trying to follow healthy eating guidelines, that can actually send us into secret eating, emotional eating, comfort eating. Because we find that we can't stick to it, and that sense of failure is overwhelming, and we just want to eat anything in sight because we've deprived ourselves. So shame and guilt is a really big part of secret eating, and this has come about because of diet culture, good foods, bad foods. And ladies who come into my mindful eating programs, often one of the first steps for them to take, and this was certainly for Judy, was to actually remove those labels, and it gave her a sense of control over food because those bad foods weren't as alluring as before because she knew she could eat them and there was no harm done. But what tends to happen when we're still working with those good food, bad food labels is that we eat those forbidden foods in secret. And we do it to help prevent judgment from ourselves, but also from others. So when I first met Bronwyn, she had so much guilt and shame around her eating that she did a lot of afternoon and nighttime eating in secret. And she felt so guilty and shameful because she was really committed to her health and she couldn't understand why she couldn't stick to a diet. And I'm going to share more about Bronwyn's story in this episode, just tapping a little bit more into that element of judgment. Women feel vulnerable that they will be judged by their partners, family members, healthcare practitioners, friends, basically anyone. This element of judgment is particularly common if you work in a caring role, or you're a healthcare practitioner, or you have that long history of dieting going on and off, thinking that you're a failure because you couldn't stick to any one of the diets that you've tried. And this was particularly so for a client of mine. She was a retired, she is a retired healthcare practitioner, and she has type 2 diabetes that when I met her, her blood sugars were going in the wrong direction, but she couldn't give up lollies and chocolates, and she had them hidden all around the house. She knew that they were the worst thing to be eating for her diabetes, but she just couldn't stop these sweet food cravings. For this client and many clients that I work with, the foods that they crave are the forbidden foods, the ones that were on that bad list. So that labeling of good and bad not only sort of brings up these feelings of guilt, it also makes us feel that we're open to be judged. And I'm going to be sharing some of the steps that my clients go through to actually stop that cycle. Another biggie that ladies in my community face when it comes to secret eating, and it's my background too, and that is the emotional or stress eating. Reaching for food as a distraction or to soothe those big emotions. And it's not uncommon that we develop this habit when we're quite young. We may have been given some food when we fell over and hurt our knee. Oh, have this, you will feel better. And I'm not blaming anyone for that action. They were wanting you to feel better, not thinking that they might be setting up a lifelong habit of emotional eating. And for Judy, when she first reached out for help, she was really struggling with comfort eating, and her weight was going in the wrong direction for her at the time, and she really wanted to stop this habit. She told me that when she bought the chocolate bar, she would actually sit in the car park at the supermarket before she drove home. That way it was kind of gone. It was kind of hidden, forgotten, and she could just feel better in the moment for eating the chocolate. It gave her some comfort and benefit, but she didn't want to continue feeling guilty and that sense of failure. She'd really had enough of that, and she knew that restricting food actually made it worse. As I said, one of the big changes for Judy was getting rid of that labelling of good foods, bad foods. The other thing that can happen when we restrict something for so long, especially food, which can give us so much pleasure, so much comfort, so much nourishment, what happens is we may start eating in secret out of rebellion. It's like, I've had enough of these rules. I don't want anyone else telling me what to do. And I think for many ladies that I work with, there's an element of that rebellion. It's just like, don't tell me what to do anymore. And that's what's so wonderful about the mindful eating approach, because I just help women pick up the steps of mindful eating so they can respond to what their mind and body is telling them. And I just remember when I first met Bev, a lady who was 84 at the time, and she said to me, I really feel like I've earned the right to eat whatever I want. But Bev's health was still important to her, and she really wondered if she could stop these cravings for sweet foods. Bev was concerned about her diabetes, and she was also hoping to at least maintain her weight and possibly just lose a little bit of weight to make her diabetes improve, but also to improve her energy levels, because at 84 she was still traveling and very involved in her children's families and her grandchildren's families, and she wanted the energy and the health to continue participating in everything that she did in her life. There's also this interesting concept of permission to eat certain foods, and often women will tell me that, I've been good all day and then I get to the evening and I just have to eat any snack food in front of me. It's like I've done so well all day and now I deserve a reward. So there's an element of reward eating here, but on the flip side, we actually need to broaden what we call permission to eat any food. I say that because I believe it, but also with the caution, obviously, if you have food allergies or intolerances or there's other foods that you're not to eat because of diagnosed medical conditions, then I'm not going to be wanting you to eat those foods because they could make you very unwell. So unless we can actually give ourselves permission to eat whatever we want, with the proviso that it's mindful, and we'll talk more about that, then we're going to stay stuck in this secret eating cycle, this comfort eating cycle, this binge eating cycle, or simply put, that all or nothing way of eating. And there's another element to this secret eating. If you live alone, then you may ignore or just tend not to take notice or to eat mindlessly and not be aware of all your habits. In various places and at different times, I've shared aspects of my journey to mindful eating and repairing my relationship with food. And one thing that popped into my mind that I hadn't thought of for a while, and it was in preparing for today's episode, that I had an aha moment not long after my brother had died, because that's when I developed one of my comfort eating habits, because I realised I've had them before. But I lived alone most of the time, and I can still recall this moment when my partner at the time, his brother, said to me, "Sally Ann, whenever I see you, you're eating." And he didn't say it in a judgmental way, and I certainly didn't feel judged. In some ways, I felt that he gifted me an insight into my eating, because whilst I was still grieving and I was really using food to fill that void, I was aware that I wasn't eating nutritious foods, that I often had a cylinder of Pringles chips in my hand, and that's what I was eating this day. As I said, I can still remember that moment when he shared that observation with me. I was sitting on the ground, on the grass, with my big cylinder of Pringles, and I had been watching a sporting event. And what I'm really saying here is that some of our eating habits, even these secret eating habits, are secret from us. We're not even aware of what we're doing. And it makes so much sense to me now when I look back in my early years working as a dietitian, when people would tell me what they ate, and I knew and they knew that there was something missing. And we can't assume that people deliberately withhold information from us. It can be totally mindless eating, stress eating, emotional eating, secret eating, and we're not aware of it. We're not really connected with what we're doing. And this is the beauty of mindfulness, because mindfulness allows us to observe our habits without judgment, without criticism. It encourages us to be more curious so we can find a lasting solution to our problem, and in this case, secret eating or non-hunger eating. And it's not a surprise when we consider the foods that we eat out of comfort and potentially in secret. It's those forbidden foods again. I've never had anyone tell me that they binge on their leafy greens. It's always those high fat, high sugar foods, the foods that we believe bring us comfort, even if it is in just that moment of reaching for them. And so it's, chocolate, ice cream, biscuits, lollies. It's also savoury foods like your chips, your potato crisps, your savoury biscuits, your takeaway food, your pizza. And what can happen in these secret eating occasions is that we eat more than we really want to. But in some cases, ladies feel compelled to finish the packet because then nobody knows that they've actually been eating in secret. If they leave half a packet or a third of a packet, someone's going to say, what's happened to this food? So this secret eating has many layers, and it does explain some of these hidden reasons for weight gain, and also mood changes. We can feel unhappy, we can feel depressed. It's not necessarily because of our weight, it's because of the types of foods that we're eating as well. I think while we're talking about food, I just want to say secret eating is not about these types of foods being a problem. It's about our reason for eating, that big why, what's driving us for eating. And that's where I love working with women, to gently help them uncover those deep reasons for eating and to just observe whether those reasons for eating still serve them. And of course, they realize that these habits don't serve them anymore, and it's much easier to move on from those old habits. The other common thing that happens with secret eating is that we don't only eat the foods in secret, the snack foods. We also sit down and eat the meals with the family. So again, it's understandable that we can start putting on weight because we're eating most of the time when we are not actually hungry. We're eating in secret for emotional or comfort or stress reasons, and then we sit down and have the meal because we want to nourish our bodies with our vegetables and our sources of protein, but also share with the family. So it's kind of, again, as I said, another layer of secret eating, and how it can make us feel out of control with food because there are so many layers to it. And it's only when we start gently pulling back those layers we can understand what's going on and the strategies to actually stop the cycle. So my clients are motivated to stop secret eating for a number of reasons. Most commonly, I hear I am just sick of feeling out of control with food. I'm sick of thinking about food from the first time in the morning right through the whole day. I'm sick of going through that cycle of being on a diet or setting a goal for my eating and then just overeating and feeling like it's all too hard. There's also health reasons why women come forward and say, I need help now. But if you're listening and thinking, yes, my relationship with food is a bit out of control, please don't wait until you have a health condition because that can just make the process a little bit more complex. But then again, if you're listening and saying, oh, I've got arthritis, or I've got high blood pressure, or I've got diabetes, don't think that the journey is too hard for you. We just approach it in a different way. But what I'm saying is now is the perfect time to stop this habit. And women will say to me, I just don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to pretend that I've got my eating under control. And that's why they find our mindful eating programs really beneficial, especially if there's a group coaching component, because they get to see that they're not alone. They're not the only one that has ended up with a secret eating habit. Bronwyn, who I mentioned earlier, and I also did an episode on this podcast with Bronwyn a while back on secret eating, she was really motivated for her health and she wanted to delay or possibly avoid the family genetic predisposition for diabetes. But of course, what had been happening for her, the more she tried to stick to a diet, the more she overate and the more stressed she felt about increasing her risk for diabetes. For Bronwyn, we looked at her eating patterns, we looked at some permissions around food, we looked at realistic expectations of what she could fit in her day as a working mum with 3 boys and a partner. Really important to create space in our day to look after ourselves, but also learning strategies to sit with emotions. And this is what mindfulness can do. It allows us to sit back and observe what's happening rather than feeling we have to react all the time. I sometimes call it like a filter. It filters out that noise, that stuff that isn't supportive for us. And the way Bronwyn likes to explain her journey with mindful eating is that she got to sit with her big emotions without having to reach for food to soothe or distract her from what was going on in her life. Being tired of feeling guilty all the time can be a motivator for women to reach out for help as well. It's kind of like you get to a stage in your life and you say, I've had enough of this. And if you're feeling that around your eating habits at the moment, then please stay with me and reach out for support. And this whole cycle is just really tiring. And especially as we age, we need to conserve as much of our energy as we can, because we realize that our bodies need to be taken care of and we need to do things differently to really feel satisfied and fulfilled at the end of the day with what we have achieved. And I know that element of self-care is so important for women because we give to so many others, but there's also choosing to do things that support other aspects of our health. And Bev, who I mentioned earlier, she certainly did adopt mindful eating and has been able to sustain mindful eating. But one of her earlier insights was how full and how uncomfortable she felt after eating too many sweet foods. And she said part of her recovery, if you like, from her sugar cravings was seeing the benefit of feeling satisfied but not over full, because it was actually helping her to sleep better. So she would wake up feeling more refreshed in the morning. So again, for each of us, how we eat impacts on different aspects of our well-being. And if we can tweak one thing, we get this big improvement to how we feel in ourselves, in our bodies, and how much we feel that we can participate in life. And especially for someone like Bev, who, as I said, was still so very active in her 80s, and she still is very active and participating in her life. So this tuning in to hunger and satiety is a really big thing, and it seems really obvious. Yeah, sure, I eat when I'm hungry, I stop when I'm full. But for someone like Annette, and she's certainly not alone, she actually made the decision to have bariatric surgery because she was worried about her weight going up. She couldn't stick to a diet. But it wasn't until she completed our mindful eating programs she realised that she'd never actually felt what true physical hunger felt like, or what it felt like to have actually eaten enough without overeating. And she said it this way. She said, I never understood before when one of my friends would say to me, I have to eat something because I'm starving. And she said, I just didn't get it until I could actually experience it myself. So that element of eating for us is so important. Of course, that's why I called my business and this approach Eating for You, because I want you to have the skills, the confidence, and the expertise to nourish your own body, like Annette and other ladies have learnt. As I've mentioned already, emotional eating, stress eating, comfort eating is quite common. And when we look at how effective food is to supporting our emotional well-being, we realise that it's not very effective at all, because what tends to happen is we reach for food and it might have an initial benefit to us, but then we go into that spiral, oh, I shouldn't have ate that, you feel guilty, you feel disappointed, you may feel ashamed, and that's the cycle that actually fuels secret eating even more. So ladies that I work with are ready to let go of food as that emotional support And as I said earlier about secret eating, the truth of secret eating is it is a coping mechanism. But we just don't ever stop and kindly reflect or patiently reflect on whether that strategy has worked. So for many of the ladies that I work with, this non-hunger eating is an element, and they've come to realize that they're not going to meet their health or their life goals by still having this habit. I think in my most recent conversation with Judy, she summed it up really beautifully, is that the practice of mindful eating, now that she's a few years past finishing our program, it has rippled into other areas of her life, and she feels much more equipped to deal with the ups and downs of life. And she said, I stress less, so naturally there's less stress eating as well. Another motivator for women, which might be familiar for you, is that they want to be a role model for others. They may notice some disordered eating patterns in their children or their grandchildren and feel a sense of responsibility. And I'm not saying it is their responsibility, but they know that their eating habits have been passed on to the next generation. So they want to actually demonstrate that it is possible to have a healthy relationship with food, to enjoy all foods without having to restrict or overeat, and take care of their health. And it's also important too for these women because they want to participate in their family's life as they age. They want to keep up with the grandkids. They want to get onto the floor with the grandkids and play with them and safely get back up again. So it's not just role modeling eating, it's role modeling longevity, and healthy longevity is what they want to do. And I think that's a really lovely aim, as long as it's not done with guilt, and it's not done with responsibility for others, because at the end of the day, yes, we can be an example to others, but we cannot change other people's habits or their goals. That's a very personal decision. But mindfulness is certainly something, as Judy had shared, rippled into her life, and it has the potential to ripple throughout other people's lives as well. So just to recap, secret eating is not a flaw. It is a coping strategy. And I want to go back and mention the client of mine that hid chocolates and lollies all around the house, didn't want to be judged, felt guilty, but also felt rebellious against those dieting rules. Working together and helping her tune into her natural hunger and satiety, identify her unique triggers or drivers for eating. After a 12-week period, we got to a stage where she was just eating chocolate mindfully a couple of times a week. So we'd gone from that needing or being driven to eat it several times a day, plus the lollies, to just desiring chocolate a couple of times a week. And that is the power of mindfulness and mindful eating practices. So whatever your habits are, it is possible that by adopting a more mindful way of eating, we can help you move through those habits that no longer serve you. Everyone's triggers and drivers for eating are different, so that's why different strategies are definitely required. But when we work together, and especially if you're in one of our programs that involves small group coaching, we truly do take secret eating out of the dark and put it into the light and not feel ashamed or guilty anymore, which is really a powerful place to be. So the steps that I take ladies through in my programs is really uncovering those reasons or drivers for eating so they can better understand their eating habits and why they've come into being. And some of these beliefs we have about food really need to be challenged, as do our beliefs in ourselves and our ability to actually make change. And that's why everything we do is step by step. It's very personalized. So you know what to do, that you're going to take a step and you're going to experience success, because that is true motivation, when we realize what we're doing actually works. Creating a practice of mindful eating, it happens in little moments throughout the day. And certainly the rate at which you can adopt a new way of eating is supported by programs like the Eating for You program. And our Foundations program runs over 8 weeks, and it includes a combination of online resources, individual consultations, plus that group coaching, which I have mentioned today is very powerful in removing the stigma of having a secret eating habit or a comfort eating habit. So after the 8 weeks, you will have the tools and the strategies to not only identify your eating habits, but start putting different choices into place to break those habits. And Bev, who has shared on the podcast as well, said, look, if there's anything that I can say about your program, Sally Ann, is it is freeing. I no longer worry about food. I no longer worry about my body, because I know if I eat mindfully, my body is going to be looked after. So if you're looking for some support, I'm not going to sell you the program now, but I really do suggest you book in for a mindful eating strategy call, because I want to make sure that I can offer you the support that you need. And if I can't, I will refer you on to someone who can. So just to recap on our secret eating, it's more common than we realize. And if you have a secret eating habit, you are definitely not alone, and it's certainly not something to be shameful of. You have a habit that has got you through challenging times. I had it as well, and many other ladies and men have it as well. If you're wanting support, then definitely reach out. And you're also welcome to listen to the stories of other ladies who have experienced mindful eating. And I'll make sure the links to those episodes are included with this episode's notes, as well as the link to my calendar. So if you're ready to really break this cycle of secret and comfort emotional eating, book in for one of those free calls. Thanks for listening, and if this episode has been of benefit, please share it on your social media pages, and I look forward to sharing with you again next week. You have been listening to the Eating for You podcast with Sally Ann Pisk. If you are looking for additional support to enjoy a lifelong way of healthier eating, then join me in a free 30-minute call to see if our approach is right for you. I have included the link to book an obligation-free call in this episode's notes.